Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about discovering what neurodiversity, bar exercise, the sandwich generation, and luxury cruising all have in common when it comes to your midlife passion. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach and Midlife Mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode, which is about midlife passion projects, everybody's favorite topic. And if you're someone who knows that you want to figure out your passion, but you feel yourself feeling like it's too hard, or maybe that you're confused and it's like you're stumbling around in the dark or something like that, then please don't miss this episode. This will help. I'm going to be introducing you to a multi-passionate professional midlife gal who got some coaching, dug deep, managed some thoughts about not being creative, and committed to pursuing what it is that she really wanted to do by challenging herself so that she could really enjoy her life at a whole new level. So good. But just quick, I want to tell you a bit about an amazing and fun opportunity for you if you know that you're looking for more at this point in your life, including more happiness. I have something new and exciting to invite you to. It's called the Midlife Happiness Jumpstart Experience. It's perfect for you if you're ready to feel lighter, brighter, and basically more you. In this 14-day experience, you're going to get tiny science-backed actions that help you boost your mood, shift your mindset, and rediscover what makes you happy. And it's fast, all in just 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's affordable and designed for busy midlife women over 50, just like you. It's super easy too. Your Midlife Happiness Jumpstart experience includes daily emails, a printable tracker, a private WhatsApp group, and a group celebration Zoom call. So, if you're listening in time to catch the next one, which is the first of the month, you can sign up right away. And if not, just check my shop at www.susierosenstein.com and click on the Shop tab to see when you can join us next for the Midlife Happiness Jumpstart group experience. Okay, now let's dive in. Today's episode is all about following your midlife passion into luxury cruising and more. My guest is Dr. Krystal Sodaitis. Krystal is a physician, executive, neurodiversity coach, and podcast host. She's a board-certified pediatrician with a career spanning academic medicine, health plan leadership, and physician coaching. Krystal transitioned from academic medicine to health plan leadership in 2013 and serves as the Associate Chief Medical Officer for a health plan based in her home state of Illinois. But beyond medicine, she is multi-passionate. One of her professional passions is helping physicians navigate neurodiversity. Physicians, especially those diagnosed later in life, often grapple with questions, self-doubt, and limiting beliefs after discovering their ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or other neurodivergent traits. That's where she steps in. However, there are other passions in my guest's life that have been exceptionally creative and fulfilling. Krystal has been committed to making sure that they also play an important role in her life. Specifically, you'll hear the way Krystal experienced figuring out what her passions were and how she navigated forward to bring them to life. They include bar exercise, the sandwich generation, and luxury cruising. And you'll be surprised to see what all of Krystal's passions have in common and where they've taken her. So don't miss this episode if you also want to bring your midlife passions to life. Please enjoy this interview. Hi, Krystal. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Women in the Middle podcast.
Hi, Susie. It's so good to be here.
I am so glad you're here. When I saw your name in my calendar this morning, I was delighted. And this is actually the second time I've had the good fortune of having you on one of my episodes. The first one was episode 364. That was the encore because it was so good. You were one of 3 panelists from the Women in the Middle Academy. And that was an awesome one. If you're interested in, if anybody's interested in hearing that one too, of course, I'll put that in the show notes. But I'm so excited to have you on because you have really taken passion projects to heart. As much as being a brilliant physician, is exciting in your life, you've also been able to do really interesting things that have to do with that and also that don't have to do with that. And to me, your ability to be creative when you didn't even think you were creative is just fascinating. So I'm so glad to have you here, and I can't wait to explore all of this.
Awesome. Me too. Really excited to be back on the podcast and talk
Oh my
about
God.
all my projects.
So good. Yes, a Friday fun. We're having some Friday fun. Regardless of when, as a listener, you may be hearing this, this is our Friday fun. And seriously, it's going to feel like that. So get ready. Okay, so I love to start these podcasts out by talking a little bit about what was going on in your 40s so we can see a little bit about the trajectory, about when you started to think, I want a little bit of change, I think I need a little more, that sort of thing. So what was going on for you then?
Yeah. So, I mean, my 40s really were a transitional decade to get to this point. I started out in my 40s. I had just started an academic general pediatric job in my hometown of Chicago. And not long into that job, I started to realize that this wasn't the right job for me. And so I started to look, as one does. That was probably pre LinkedIn. I think back then I was looking at either Indeed or some other job board. And I was looking for medical directors because that was my title. And I came upon a job listing for a job that I immediately recognized as this is the job for me. This is the perfect job for me.
Oh,
And I
let's just
applied.
pause on that. That's amazing that you had that insight. So, what about that job did you know was perfect? Like, you obviously must have been doing some thinking or soul searching or something before that. What essence did it have?
It tied on an interest that I had and I didn't know a job existed just in that area. So when I was in fellowship, for people who don't know, when you become a doctor, you have some years of residency training, and then many people will do a post-residency training called a fellowship. My fellowship was in academic general pediatrics, and part of my role was to teach residents. And one of the classes that I taught was about managed care or health insurance in the US. And I thought the topic was extremely interesting. I brought that knowledge and continued to teach that topic throughout my career, never expecting that there was a job that was really focused just on managed care and health insurance.
Oh
And
my
when I,
gosh. This is so great because so many of us feel so stuck with the title that we have, not even appreciating other skills that we have that could help us lean into a slightly different direction within the overarching thing. Like when I first found out you were a pediatrician, of course, I'm just thinking about my experience with pediatricians, which was just with my baby and just kids, like no clue about the breadth of opportunities available to doctors if you're, interested. So that's awesome.
yeah, so, and it was, I did not get that job that I applied for, but I had a fantastic recruiter and then I reached out to some other people in my network who helped me to find the training and other sort of ways to enhance my resume so that 15 months later, when I applied for the next job in that same field, I got it. And it really was the dream job. Um, I I would go to that job. I would wake up excited to go to work. I would tell people that I literally thought I found the golden ticket, and I was very happy there. And then a few years in, I'm still happy in my job, but I'm also getting those. I'm still in my 40s. I'm getting that inkling that I'm like, there's got to be more. Especially because now, as I tell people, when you take care of patients, when you're a doctor, like it's really, it's all encompassing. Um, we take a lot of that home. This job didn't have that. I didn't have the weight of patient care that sort of followed me around even after my regular, sometimes like 7 to 6 job.
That's
So
that's also really interesting because I've had a fair number of physicians as clients. And my observation is that if you have an intense job like you're describing, some jobs, not just being a physician, but some jobs are very intense. And the amount of training that you need in advance is very intense. And so this kind of awareness of reconnecting with identity and thinking I might need to pivot or I might need more, it tends to happen a little younger than it does with so many people. So
Mm.
people that are experiencing that intensity and feeling that they may need a change in their late 30s, early 40s type of thing, they may not even think it's and I'm doing air quotes here, a classic midlife crisis. Now, I don't like to use the word crisis, but it's a wake-up call when you start to think things like this. What am I doing? I don't know how to apply this. Where am I going to go next? I need more, all that stuff. And I always think you're right on track because you had that
Yeah.
intensity, and the intensity can really wear you down.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when that intensity was released and I had a little more time to really think and explore, and I started to think like there has to be something else. There has to be more. And I really took my time. I listened a lot. I would take long walks and have podcasts in my ear, and sort of like following the bouncing ball of podcasts like we all do. Um, I came upon a life coach school coach and her podcast, and then ultimately the life coach school podcast, never expecting to become certified as a life coach until that one, there was this one specific episode where the online certification was announced and it all clicked. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is a perfect enhancement to my job. This will be a great tool in my leadership toolkit. I'm going to go ahead and get certified as a life coach.
That's just making me smile because when I certified, I was very concerned about bricks and mortar. So I thought, no, I don't know what this online stuff is. It was so new and so young, and it wasn't even really online. It was telesummit or teleseminar. That's what it was. But I was very concerned that I had to go someplace here and sit down in a classroom. And even though I knew that things were starting to change, it was in 2014. I still felt that it was better to do that. And when I started to discover podcasts and discover that there was a little more wiggle room out there with how you can access continuing education, any kind of education, really, I took the leap with teleseminar.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
I mean,
funny.
it was again, it was just one of those things where I was taking my time. I knew that there was something else, and as soon as I heard it, it was sort of like a done deal.
Mm.
Um, and then and then I got certified. I still continued in my job. I still loved my full-time job. I definitely use it every day in my leadership, and in the way I conduct myself at work, the way I lead my team. But I also fell in love with one-on-one coaching. So I have, a small coaching practice where I coach neurodiverse physicians, physicians who identify as being neurodiverse, whether or not they have a diagnosis like dyslexia or autism or ADHD. Yeah, and that's how I got to know you and um, started to explore my thought that I'm not a creative person. And you definitely have definitely challenged that thought and helped me change it.
And even though, yes, for sure, this has been super fun to be your coach in this area and cheer you on. And what I'm really noticing is even with this story that you just shared, taking the leap from classic pediatric clinical training and then going into the plan management and all the things that you do, but to think of specializing to support neurodiverse physicians in a different way, that's a huge creative leap.
I never actually thought about it that way because in my mind, it was a very systematic, I have a very specific reason. The evolution of my coaching practice seemed really systematic. So the fact that it's like a creative leap, go me.
Yes, absolutely. So why, like in this episode today, where we're recognizing and you're exploring with us some of these things about what guides you to passion projects, I kind of see your support of neurodiverse physicians as a potential passion project. Like how long had you been interested in neurodiversity and why was it so fascinating to you?
You know, I have several neurodiverse people, mostly ADHD in my family. I first wanted to help um, gifted adolescents and young adults. Doctors are smart people, they have smart kids. And so it became clear to me that this was a population that needed coaching when they get older. And then I started coaching in that age group is residents. And I think what drew me to them is the same as with my family members, the same as these, physicians. I can see the beauty and the gift in the way their minds work. All they see is the shame and the deficit and all the times they've been told that they're not underperforming or a problem. But I see all the errors. Like I don't have neurodiversity. That I feel like they're some of the most creative people I know. And so I feel like it's a good balance. Like the way my brain works is a good balance to help the way their brains work.
Wow. Okay. So what you're going to see as a listener, we're going to keep sharing these stories and you're going to start to see some recurring themes because Krystal's experience of exploring passion projects, which you probably didn't even realize that that's what you were doing for a while, right? As you keep going and you're even thinking, why am I even going here? Then why am I allowing myself to pursue this? But that's kind of what's happening. So I am shining a big spotlight on the epiphany you had that this is a way I can serve and I'm going to take a risk and put myself out there to serve in this way. And as you know, as you start to get into any kind of a program with certification, it's always fun as consume. We love to consume stuff, don't we? So many listeners of the podcast and people in my community and friends and family, like not everybody's like this, but if you enjoy consuming material and information, you probably have a lot of other people in your life that also love consuming. And then what to do with it. So some of us are okay to just consume and learn, and others of us are very focused on productivity and having to do something with it because you just spent time and resources on training and all the things. So there's so many elements of making a transition and allowing yourself to follow your heart to move in a direction. So now that we've talked a little bit about how that worked with neurodiverse physicians and supporting them, let's explore kind of the next thing you did, which was very personal, and it had to do with the bar, and that's not the legal bar.
Yes, so Pure Barre, for all the Pure Barre enthusiasts out there, shout out to you all. So when I turned 55, this was around the same time that for those of you that have been listening to Susie's podcast for a while know that when she turned 60, she had gifts. She gave herself 6 gifts for turning
6
60.
and 60, right? 6 and 60,
Right.
and they all kind of had a different flavor.
And so I took that inspiration and I decided that I was going to give myself 5 gifts for turning 55. And one of them was the gift of health. And one of the things that I had never done was I had never paid for in-person classes. If it came to like yoga, Pilates, whatever, I always did it online and free and in my own, basement or living room. But I decided that I was going to pay for in-person classes. I tried this Pilates studio, that really wasn't it for me. But I was very motivated to find something that I really enjoyed. And I wanted community. That was the other part, is that I wanted a community. After COVID, I basically lost almost everybody, and I really wanted that third space, as people call it. And I found a Pure Barre studio that's like, less than a 5-minute drive from my house. And I, I at first I can't say I loved it because it was really hard. I actually wrote a blog post about how the reason why I stuck with it was because I decided that I didn't like it because it was hard. And so, I'm not used to not doing things. I think most of us are not used to doing things that we don't do well. And so I stuck with it. And I mean, 500 classes later, like it is my third space. It is a very important part of my life.
So
For
you were
about,
you were a beginner. Like you went in
yes.
there as a beginner, and I remember you talking about this in the academy. Like it was hard and you didn't feel like it's uncomfortable to be a novice.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was really uncomfortable. And I wanted to quit so many times. But
And you
after my
didn't.
first like intro months, I took the leap and I bought the unlimited pass for a year and I'm like, no, I'm going to give this I'm going to give this a fair shake. And I did, and
Now,
I love it now.
and how did you figure out how to put it into your day? Because with so much online stuff, sometimes it can be really challenging to make a commitment to be someplace for a class.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that um I am a morning person. I like to work out in the morning. Part of the reason why I think this worked out for me is that now almost every day, but most before it was a little bit less, but most days of the week they had a 6 a.m. class. And so I am a person who has always woken up early to go work out. And so it's not that big a deal for me to create a habit to wake up every morning at 5:15 to just get myself out of bed and dressed and to the bar studio. So the habit of going wasn't as much of a hurdle as actually for me as participating in the classes and not feeling a lot of, negative feelings about my performance.
Hmm. And this is one of the I've never been in a bar studio, but there's a bar and there's mirrors. And that
Yeah.
that can be really challenging.
Hmm. Yeah. And the other thing I love about this bar studio is they're so accepting. You never ever hear a word, positive, negative, or otherwise, about the way someone else looks, about someone else's body. They might say like, "Oh, that's a cute outfit," but they won't say like, "Wow, look at you, you've lost weight or you're really da 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 da." Like, nope, there's no discussion about it. It's kind of like
Oh,
an unwritten, unspoken rule.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. There's enough to worry about.
Hmm.
Trying to learn a new skill like that. There's enough to
Yep.
worry about. Wow. Okay. So those are two big pivots. Now we're going to move a little bit more into classic creativity. And even with these, I'm not sure that, because, as we're talking about them, I know that you also picked up crochet along the way, which is that and classic art things are probably more classic. But while I've known you in the Women in the Middle Academy, you've also taken on two massive creative passion projects and uh, making a decision to be clear on what you're passionate about and then to put the time and resources into it to give it legs, to give birth to it. Very different skills and a very different timeline, right? So tell us a little bit about your experience of writing your book.
Yeah. So, and this follows along with sort of I guess is kind of like my, MO, my modus operandi is that like I think about things for a long time. So the name of my book is Sandwiches Are Delicious. This Feels Like a Vice, Tales from the Modern Sandwich Generation. It is a title that I had in my mind for years. And in my mind, I mulled around like one day I'm going to write a book about the sandwich generation. Like, this is so hard. Like, we're all going through it. And then almost in like the same breath, you were talking about writing your book and this program that you joined to help you do it. And almost in the same breath, I said, I think I'm going to write my book, and I don't have to write the whole thing. It can be a compilation of essays, and I can gather other people. And both of those things, it's like a big bang, happen at the same time, and I was off to the races. It wasn't that easy. I say that, but like it was hard. I mean,
Yeah, wasn't that?
you
It's
helped
never
me. Like,
easy.
yeah, it wasn't
Pulling
like
these books
boom, I
together.
like popped out a book in 6 months. It probably took me 2 more years to gather the essays, write essays, get the book all formatted, blah, 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 all that. But it was something that I was just like mulling around, and then finally, like all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing this. Let's move forward.
Thank you for sharing this. And I just want to say, like, the book I wrote is called 50 Ways to Celebrate Life After 50. And this is why it's so important to talk to people and be in community because that inspired you. So it's not like I was also scared. I didn't know what I was going to write. And I ended up writing about six kind of stories that support celebration, and then a list of 50 ways to celebrate life after 50, and also about 30 prompts to help you think about celebration and what you want in those six areas that I've highlighted. And so I was telling the Academy members about this, and this organization I found that this program that was awesome and really helped it feel way more doable. And it was called Tiny Book Course, and I'll definitely put a link in the show notes. But there was something about my story that inspired you to take action. So what do you think it was?
I think that it correlated with something that was had already started to germinate inside me. And so I was just like, I didn't poo-poo it. And that's the one thing that, you talk a lot about and, helps a lot as a coach is that I don't automatically, you always talk about the what and the how, and that the how often sort of squelches our dreams. But I didn't let that get squelched by the how, like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to find the time? What are you going to do? You don't even like writing that much. It was just like, one day I'm going to write this book. I'm going to write it one day.
Period. That's so
Period.
important that you shared that. Yeah, exactly. So when you figure out what you want, you don't need to figure out how you're going to do it in the same breath, but let the what just plant plan itself in your reality. Like it's going to happen. You're going to write a book. The how will come. But if you focus on that how, you'll shut it down right away. You don't need to know. You don't need to know because when you start to figure it out, it's going to change your idea anyway. So this idea that you could do essays, including your own experience, was a real breakthrough for you.
Right. Right. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, let's get it done. And I had a I had like a format. I had this course that would help me through it. I wasn't going to think about like I never would have thought that, oh, you mean there's a course that helps you write books until you mentioned it.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know. And when you're in community of people, that's what's so beautiful about finding a community of like-minded women. So the women in the academy, for example, like they're all thinking, I want more. And so once you decide that you want more, you recognize the feeling, then you're opening yourself up to possibility. And then when all the drama comes about fear and hesitation and doubt and imposter and like all the things that are going to come up when you're making a change and becoming a beginner again, you have support. But it is so encouraging and motivating to hear other people talk about their journey.
Yeah.
So inspiring because it's not easy for any of us to make a big change, and that's okay. That's
Yeah, and
okay.
and if I could do a plug for your other podcast, The Woman in the Middle Entrepreneurs, is that if you're thinking there's something else, like you can feel it inside, just get quiet and listen. Listen to, that's what I was doing, listening to all those podcasts, listening to all of the women entrepreneurs and what are their ideas? What do they do? Maybe you don't want to start a dog walking business or whatever, but maybe there is something about that story that it's like, again, it's like germinating. It's like plants. You don't all of a sudden bloom the plant. You've got to water it. You've got to tend to it. You've got to be patient. And then one day you come out and you look and they're like, oh, look, it flowered. Look at that.
Exactly. And another thing that kind of acts like a trap for so many midlife gals is that we don't get enough new data. So if you think about data, you probably have all this negative stuff going on in your mind that I even mentioned the word about a stats course or something. But really, data is just having conversations with people who are doing interesting things. The more people you meet, the more conversations you have, the more documentaries you watch, the more podcasts you listen to, the more books you read. It just opens you up when you feel like you need a change, that you need more. Something isn't okay now. You're feeling a little stuck, a little stagnant, a little bit blah. The first thing you need to do is change something. And that can start with just having more conversations with people. And one of the reasons that we don't have conversations with people is we're so busy. And again, air quotes on busy. We have this thought, so many of us, that we're just too busy and that if it's not productive, more air quotes, the way you think of productivity, then it's not worth your time. But what if productivity, I've mentioned this before in episodes too, what if productivity is you taking care of yourself? And what if getting more data is the exact thing you need to be able to get the next insight that's going to lead you to the next step, that's going to lead you to more happiness and fewer regrets? So we need more data. It's okay to talk to people. It's okay to go to a meeting and you're not sure, ooh, it's not productive. I just joined the Toronto Botanical Gardens. And so that means I gotta walk, I gotta do some walking. I gotta get myself there. I paid for it, like you, Krystal. I paid for it to make sure I go. Because you don't have to pay to go to all the gardens, but if you want to be part of the community and get some special invitations and this and that. So that means that I'm gonna have to change my thoughts about the 15, 20 minutes it takes to drive there, park, walk, and return. And what am I doing there? Walking, relaxing, chit-chatting, taking pictures of flowers. And that's productive because it's self-care. So self-care has to be enough, and you tending to yourself like a garden, doing the things you need to open yourself up to the next step that's perfect for you when you're not as happy as you could be. Like that's the most, I would say it's the most important thing you can do. Because if you're
Absolutely.
miserable, you can't show up for other people. You can't live your best life. And I know it sounds like, oh, that quote's just on a pillow. But living your best life is really important because we only get one life and it goes by really fast. So we want to
Yeah,
waste less time. And what you're talking about is trusting that idea that you have a story to tell. Your sandwich generation story is valuable. It's going to inspire other people. What was it like for you to write your story down?
um, it was challenging in that I don't think of myself as a writer. I don't really enjoy the act of writing. Um, I really wanted to write only one or two of the essays in the book, and I actually ended up writing, I think, five or six because it was a challenge for me to find other people who would be willing to do the same and share their stories. But once I had the story, once I knew what I wanted to write about, it just flowed out of me. So again,
Mm.
it's that getting quiet and being patient and not being, once I realized I had set some arbitrary deadline for myself to finish the book, and it really took the joy out of it and it made it really stressful. And I think that's one of the take homes too from what you're saying, and for women that are listening and anybody listening is don't be in a rush. You may feel like something's got to change. And as long as you're in an otherwise like safe situation, you can really slow down and just get some data, talk to people, listen to podcasts, read books if that's more your alley. Just take long walks without anything in your ears, just to allow yourself some time to think. But you don't have to, don't be in a rush. Allow it
Yeah,
to, naturally grow.
exactly. And that's really like when you're in a rush, you're not in the present moment. When you're thinking it's better over there, this will be great when the book is done. Well, that defeats the purpose of joy in the present
Hmm.
moment. What if creating the book was done in a way that was pleasurable, even though you're a beginner, even though you don't consider yourself a writer, even though you don't have all your essay writers pulled together yet? What if it's okay? So I love that you noticed that the deadline wasn't helping. A lot of times a deadline will help and sometimes it won't. So if you want your experience to be pleasant, you need to do some mindset work to support yourself. And a lot of it has to do with patience and relaxing. Okay, really, really great insight as to the process of writing that book. Okay, well, that was really interesting. And if anybody out there is thinking about writing a book, don't close it down. Just be open to it. And who cares if you don't know when or how you're going to do it? It's all fine. Okay, and there's one more thing I want to ask you about. The next thing you did was fascinating to me because it's really not as, on the one hand, it's not as related to your professional experience, your work experience, your personal experience. But it is because it's something you're very passionate about and you've been very passionate about it for a long time, but you really morphed it into a professional contribution. And that's something that I talk about in the academy. I don't like to call things a job and I don't like to call them a career necessarily, but I think the broader topic is professional contribution. So how can you make a professional contribution to a passion project is another creative leap in terms of how you spend your time doing stuff that you love. So here's another passion project. How did you make the leap into the world of podcasting about luxury cruising, and why was it such a big deal for you to do?
Yeah, so I love cruising. And I love talking about cruising. I love listening to podcasts about cruising. If anybody wants to talk about cruising, I'm all in. And for years, people had said to me, you should do a podcast, not necessarily about cruising, maybe it was about anything else, coaching or managed care. And I never really I was like, no. And one of the biggest hurdles was, you know, often you have interviews, but often you do solo episodes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of anything that I would basically be talking to myself about for 20 minutes. I just never found anything that would be that interesting until cruising. And then there was the leap of how do you do a podcast? Everyone said like, oh, it's so easy. You just,
Now hang on,
turn
pause
on your
there for
phone.
a second.
Yeah.
One sec, you're just going so fast over something really interesting. This idea of talking to yourself on a podcast, that is what happens. Like when you're recording a podcast, you're talking to yourself. And you have to believe that you have something interesting to say because you want to be energetic and happy. Like not happy all the time. Sometimes we're talking about difficult stuff, but you have to be very passionate about creating the podcast, not just going on the cruise in your example. So one of the things that comes up all the time with the midlife gals is I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know what I'm passionate about. And when I first heard this, I thought, wow, passion projects and being passionate about stuff you'd think would be top of mind because it's what you love. And if you look around in your life and how long you've been on the planet, it's probably represented in there by something you spend a lot of time on, or that you learn a lot about it, or you're doing stuff, or you're buying stuff, or you're studying it. So I was surprised when people would say, I don't know what my passion project is. And I think a lot of that is because a passion project, that terminology that's very common, seems like it's something huge and scary. Like you have to get it right or your life's going to suck, that kind of thing. And I always say, but what if you were on a desert island and you were gabbing with the other person? There's only two of you on a desert island. What are you talking about? It's probably your passion project. It's probably something you've always loved your whole life. Like I'm going to be talking about wildlife. I'm going to be talking about creativity. I'm going to be telling stories. I love all of that stuff. So you have loved cruises for how long? When was your first cruise?
My first cruise was in 2001, but I got really into it about 10 years ago in 2015.
Okay, there you go. So it shouldn't be a surprise when you look at how you spend your vacation time, how many cruises you've been on, what you really love about it. And yes, you do talk about it a lot. And you have so many tips and tricks because you've been on so many and you're so interested in it so that you're digging in. Like a lot of times, if something doesn't make sense to me, I just move on. But if something doesn't make sense to you, you dig in. You want to figure it out. You want to be able to offer the best suggestion and all that kind of stuff. So I shouldn't have been so surprised. It makes perfect sense. But to be able to take it to the next step of making a professional contribution, again, you have to figure out how is this going to work for me in my age and stage of life? What is going to make this an enjoyable experience? The doing of the thing, not just producing the thing. So
Yeah.
take it away. Let's hear the rest.
Yeah, so and so I started mulling around with this idea again, not thinking about the how. I was like, well, maybe I'll do a podcast. Maybe I'll do a podcast about luxury cruising. And I came up with luxury cruising because I love luxury. Like I don't live in the lap of luxury. I don't travel luxuriously most of the time. But kind of like, I mean, our generation grew up with lifestyles of the rich and famous with Robin Leach and, you know, throughout all generations, people have been interested in seeing what luxury is like. what it's like to experience that level of comfort, service. I mean, we all share a love of Below Deck. Like
Oh, yes.
we're never going to spend, I'm never going to be able to spend however much money that is to charter one of those yachts, but
Oh
I
my
still
gosh, I
love,
love Below Deck so much.
right? But we still love watching it. So, and when I was looking for podcasts, I I wanted to hear about those luxury lines, and it didn't exist, and it still doesn't exist really, except for my podcast. So, so again, I'm thinking like, yeah, this is, and I'm going to start a podcast. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, figure out at some point, right? It was just, I allowed that to just germinate. And then I found a retreat where someone was basically the premise of the retreat was that one thing, the one thing that you've been wanting to do, but just haven't done. And again, it was like, snap my fingers. I'm like, well, that's it. This is the retreat that's going to help me launch this podcast. And with a lot of help from you, you also gave me a lot of really good, suggestions and advice about the podcast. I also, around the same time, at the beginning of this year, a network launched called the Doctor Podcast Network. And so I joined that network, and that's been really instrumental to help me like successfully launch the podcast and continue to produce the podcast. And so, yeah, it's still hard work. I would love to have more guests. I would prefer to interview people rather than do solo episodes. So if anyone's listening, wants to be on the podcast, we can put a link in the show notes.
Well, just share the
Um,
link now, and I will put it in the show notes as well. How can they
so
get
the
a hold of
pod
you?
the podcast is to listen to the podcast, it's luxurycruising.net /podcast, or wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can find my podcast, It's just called Luxury Cruising. I make things
And
very
so
simple.
the other thing that's so fascinating is that you are basically applying the same how to cruising as you did your book. So you had people writing the essays and bringing that experience to your book and your initiative. And now you're looking to interview people and have them bring their experience to your podcast.
Yes.
And for you, that's become a really enjoyable way to create content, which is
Yes.
awesome. You found your lane.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I have so much fun recording the podcast because it's what I love to do. I love talking to people about their cruise. And especially if it's people who have been on this really nice, luxurious line and had amazing food and great service and seen beautiful places on this earth. It's really a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun.
So, what defines luxury? What's a luxury cruise? I've only been on 2 cruises. What stands out to me that I would call luxury is the service in the dining room. That's very high end in my mind. Not having, well, I don't know. Like you, I don't consider myself a traveler in the luxury category. Although
Yeah.
I've done some very nice trips, but that doesn't seem like the category I'm in as I classify myself. So what is luxury cruising?
So it is a designation that is usually based on the size of the ship, so the number of passengers, especially when you compare the guest to crew ratio. Usually there are fewer guests per crew member. Um, there, again, you have a higher level of service, higher level of maybe quality of the food, the attention you get at the destinations. Often, many of the cruise lines have individually curated experiences at that destination. Because you have smaller yachts or smaller ships, you're able to go into smaller ports or even secluded beaches that larger ships can't get to. But but those are all sort of like the characteristics of a luxury line. But the definition of luxury is really personal to people. And it's sort of like asking somebody like, what's the difference between, the Hampton Inn and Four Seasons? Nothing against Hampton Inn. I have stayed in more than my fair share of Hampton Inns. But what's the difference? It's a building with individual rooms with beds.
Interesting.
It's the small things that you might get at a Four Seasons that you don't get at a Hampton Inn. That's what makes it luxury. And that could be very personal to the person. That is very personal to the person.
Right. Like as you're talking, I'm thinking, oh, I would define that next level as fancy. That's a word that I would probably
Yeah.
use to define it. And I know that we've taken we're in this timeshare for sailboats for catamarans, and we only have one trip left. It's been going on for a decade. But when the kids first came, the kids came on it 4 times with us. So we did it a couple times without them. But the first time they came on, they were so uncomfortable. So this situation is a 54-foot catamaran with, you can either do the whole boat yourself if you have other friends or whatever, or there are people there that you don't know. So our size boat, which is the lowest boat, the lowest class of luxury, it was 10 guests. So when the kids are there, we are 5 of those guests and a captain and a first mate. It's all been fabulous, but my kids were so uncomfortable. Now you are in bathing suits with cover-ups, like that you're on a boat for a week. But because it's a 54-foot catamaran, there's not a lot of space in the kitchen, the galley. So they don't want anybody clearing plates or going into that space. And my kids automatically felt compelled to clear their plates. And they kept being told, no, don't come in here. Please, just leave it there. Just go enjoy. So literally the only thing you need to do on that trip is apply sunscreen. That's really all you need to do because everything else is done. So they felt that having somebody come to your table, which felt kind of cozy, you weren't in a big room or anything.
Yeah.
And they felt that was very fancy and they felt very uncomfortable not clearing their plates. I guess I drilled that into them successfully.
Yeah, good for you, Mom.
But on below deck, what really surprises me is the attention to the cabin room. So having somebody unpack your stuff and be in there so many, I don't know how many times a day they're in there, but they're always in there cleaning and
Yep.
that
Making the
seems
beds, remaking the beds, turning it down.
right. That's a lot. So that to me would feel
Yeah.
fancy. But the things that you mentioned just surprised me a little bit that there might be different offerings because it's a smaller vessel, ship, whatever you call it, and you're in different places. Really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really, it's a really fun topic and I love it. And there are so many podcasts and, YouTube channels and whatever that people are talking about, how to get the best deal and all the usual mainstream cruise lines, which are MSC, Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, and Carnival. And I just felt like this was an area of the cruise market that really hadn't been touched.
Ooh, super fun. Now, what is one of the trips that you really, really want to do in your next chapter? Whenever that is, whenever you're ready to do that sort of a trip,
Yeah.
maybe it's now, maybe it's later. What do you have your eyes set on?
So my sort of dream experience is to do a world cruise. So basically you circumnavigate globe on a luxury ship. These are usually, anywhere from 150 to 250 days or nights on a smaller cruise ship, so probably less than 1,000 passengers, very high end. And you go to, probably 100 ports or more. Sometimes you stay overnight, so you can
Wow.
experience it more time there. Um, Again, special curated experiences. I know you can't, like, for example, um, you want to go to Machu Picchu. Plenty of cruises go to Machu Picchu, but this would be probably an elevated way to experience Machu Picchu, whether you wanted to walk up yourself or take some transportation. And maybe there would be a very special local guide that would be able to explain to you more about, the history and the culture of the people. So that's kind of that's my dream, my unbucket list cruise.
Yeah, we like to call things around here unbucket, not just bucket, because we want to think about them and enjoy them, not just with the death timeline, but just how to enjoy your life.
And
So, with that experience, Krystal, do you see yourself working on the ship, or is this something that you don't want to have any professional contribution going on at that time?
No. I mean, I might continue to podcast. I would probably continue to podcast while I was on the ship and maybe interview people who are on the ship and talk about the destinations and the experiences. But I don't think, and I'm still a coach. I might have coaching clients that I coach while I'm on the ship, but that's not something at that point in my life, I'm going to be more interested in focusing on the travel and the experience and having the rest of it have to fit in with what I'm doing.
So it sounds like internet's not a problem. So with
Oh no.
podcasting, I know sometimes I can't do certain things based on where I am, like if I'm at a place with not decent internet. So it sounds like with luxury cruising, that is not a problem.
Actually, since a law was passed probably about 2 years ago, allowing Starlink to be on a moving vessel, most cruise ships have Starlink internet, and so their Wi-Fi or their internet can be better than what we have at home, depending on where
Wow.
the satellite is. Starlink isn't perfect, but it's pretty darn good.
So do you have one of those maps at home with a bulletin board map where you put pins in with all the places you've been?
No, no. Well, I do. I have some of mine on a site called Cruise Mapper. Matt, the originator or the founder of Cruise Mapper, was actually on the podcast, and so it's a free site where you can put in your cruises, and it like maps it out. It maps out like the actual route the ship took. Pretty cool.
Wow. And then one more question about your personal experience. What was one of your favorite experiences or trips so far?
I mean, our favorite as a family was a 10-day Baltic cruise that we took. Um, there's a lot of reasons why that was a really fun and important trip for us. But one of the things is we were supposed to overnight in St. Petersburg, but because of the war, that was canceled, and instead we overnighted in Riga. And we did an adventure. We rented a car. My husband's family's from Lithuania, and we drove 4 hours to Vilnius. And we got to spend some time one night in Lithuania, met his cousin, had kind of a crazy adventure on the way back, getting back to the ship, but it was fantastic.
So that was a 2-day stop?
Yeah, it was an overnight. So we got in probably in the morning of one day, and then the ship stayed there through that day overnight until the end of the next day. And so we got off, rented a car, drove into Lithuania, and maybe came back.
This never even occurred to me that this was a possibility that cruises just don't come and go in the same day from these ports.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a lot of luxury lines do that. They overnight in ports, and especially on these world cruises, they overnight in ports because then you can also go to. On that same cruise, there was a port stop, and I can't even remember the name of this port, but it's the port if you want to go to Berlin in Germany. It's a 3 hour bus ride, and you're in port from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So basically, you take the bus for 3 hours, you're in Berlin for 3 hours, then you take the bus back for 3 hours. We didn't do that because I'm like, that's not how I want to spend my day. If you have an overnight, then you can go into Berlin. You can either spend the whole day there in the evening. You're even allowed to, like, we were in an Airbnb. You could spend the night in a hotel and just
Hmm.
stay in Berlin and then just take either the bus or the train or whatever back.
That's
Um,
fascinating. It never occurred to me. I've only been on 2 cruises, so I don't know what's what. That's for sure. Well, Krystal, this has been fascinating. You really are somebody who has made passion projects a core part of your life, and you've taken them to the new level. And it's very impressive, very motivating, and inspiring. So I encourage listeners to trust your gut, trust your heart. If it's something that you want to do, allow yourself to want it. You don't need to figure it out. And honestly, I think this separating the what from the how business is the key here. Just allow the idea to come through and just value it. It's an idea. That's all it
yeah,
is right now, but you can make that idea foundational and just know that it's going to happen in your life and you'll figure out when another time. But allowing that really helps you think about yourself differently. You're a woman who's going to take a world cruise, period.
That's right. That's right.
It's not up for negotiation. It's happening. And if you need to change your plan at some point, you do that. But allowing yourself to lean into that identity of who you want to be, who you want to become on purpose is what it's all about. It's what it's all about. And we got to have fun. We got to figure out how to get our jollies, right?
That's right. That's right.
So
Yep.
you've been an absolute pleasure, so motivating, not only in the Women in the Middle Academy, but also just for me personally, just watching you grow and try new things and become a
Thank you.
beginner and celebrate success and some of your personal goals and dreams. So give us again how people can best get a hold of you.
So, I mean, the best way to get a hold of me, if you just want to email me, is Krystal@lifecoachingforgifted.com. That's all one word. We'll put it in the show notes. That's just an email. But I'll also I'll send links to the podcast. If you'd like to be on the podcast, there's a interest form. I'm happy to send a link for that. And if you want to read the book, I have an ebook. Thanks to Susie's recommendation, I'll send a link to how you can pick up the e-version of the book.
Amazing. So, and it's also available on Amazon.
Absolutely. Yeah. We can send the link to the Amazon link too.
Yeah, we can do all the links. So if there's a lot of links here. So for all this good stuff, make sure to head over to my website, susierosenstein.com, and click on the podcast tab, and you'll see the episode there. Krystal, thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. I can't wait to get on a luxury cruise. Maybe we'll go together. That would be
absolutely
fun. Oh my gosh, to be with you who knows all the tricks. Oh, that would be fantastic. Okay, thanks again. I wish you all the best with the podcast and everything else you're up to.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for this episode. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall and was able to watch your actual thoughts as you were listening to this interview. What was going on for you? I hope you were coming up with all kinds of ideas and insights. I have a feeling that Krystal's story about figuring out what she wanted more of in her life motivated you to also catch those thoughts that reveal your desires too. These thoughts often present themselves as a bit out there and maybe, a little crazy. And then you probably poo-poo them down and squish the light of day right out of them. That's what I do. I've gotten good at stopping myself though. And that's not going to help you discover what your dreams are and help you follow those dreams. And I believe that you owe it to yourself to at least be honest and understand what you want. How you move forward once you know what you want, that's a separate issue, and you can also figure that out. I know that you can. Remember, if you aren't intentional with stuff like this, time will just fly by and you're highly likely to have regrets. You may know that I can help you stop living like time doesn't matter, because, my friend, it does. So if you're ready to step on the gas and make changes that are important to you, coaching together might be right for you. It might be a good idea. This is exactly how I can help you as your midlife coach. It starts with your thinking. And this is what we're up to in my Women in the Middle Academy. So if you'd like to see if working together is a good fit for you, head over to www.talktosusie.com and book your free momentum call. This is the way to learn more about how the Academy can help you go from wasting valuable time and worrying about having regrets because you're not letting yourself be happy, to feeling fulfilled and excited about what's to come, all the while using creative tools, mindset coaching, joyful planning, and accountability in an amazing community of like-minded women. So please reach out and book your free momentum call at www.talktosusie.com. Okay, that's it for this episode. In the nutshell, my focus as your midlife coach is to help you waste less valuable time and get on with the good stuff. This is what regret-proofing your life is all about. Remember, being the queen of your brain domain is the best way to be, and midlife transformation coaching is the fastest way to rediscover joy and purpose after 50. My friend, it is time to stop waiting for the right moment and start creating the excitement, joy, and fulfillment that you're craving. So if you'd like to see if working together is a good fit for you, either in the Academy or maybe even privately, please reach out. For show notes and links, go to www.susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and look for episode 423. You'll also see a link there for my other show, The Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, which is all about the reality of running your business when you're a midlife gal. It's also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the podcast places. So let's do this, ladies. It's time to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.